Well, good morning, church. Tuesday morning, and we're looking at Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 to 7. Yesterday, we kind of saw a structure in it. It was verse 1 told us about the author. Verse 2 through 4, it really taught us what knowledge was. And then verses 5 to 6 was a call, a command to come and get it. And then verse 7 was how to do that. How are you going to gain that? And it's through the fear of the Lord. But today we're really going to look at verses 1 through 7 and what did Solomon mean when he wrote it? What was he trying to tell people of his time? And then how can we glean from that for what it is we have today? So let me read it again. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 to 7. And it says this: the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, and knowledge and discretion to the youth, to let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands to obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. And so, to know what he means, we read what he says and try to remember what he says. So, Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Why is that significant? Because the king was really the father of that nation. He was the one instructing that nation. He was the mediator between God that was giving the rules, commandments of God to the people and then calling them to obey. It was a theocracy. God was in charge, and he mediated out the obedience of the people through the king. The king was held accountable for keeping the people in line. And so Solomon, this wisest king that ever lived, decided, I need to teach these people, teach them what knowledge is, teach them what wisdom is, teach them how to understand the world, because I can't merely hold them under my thumb in obedience. I can't really threaten them with excommunication or killing them to keep them to obey. I must teach them. And why must he teach them? Because he's the king of Israel. Israel is the people of God. These are God's people. They're not Solomon's people. So Solomon doesn't have the right to destroy them or excommunicate them. He doesn't have the right to hurt them or harm them. He has the right to build a nation in such a way that they prosper, and whatever is best for them, he gives to them. And so Solomon decides in all of his wisdom, the best thing that they need, or one of the major things that they need, is to learn the fear of the Lord. They need to learn the knowledge of God. They need to learn to live wisely. They need to learn to understand the world and the things that are around them. And so Solomon means to teach the people of God how to live spiritually discerning lives. Spiritually discerning lives. And church, we need this today. Desperately need this today. There's so much confusion out there about who says what about the Bible and how that is interpreted, and so many different interpretations, that we need to know God, know how to live wisely, so that we can understand the world around us and really then shun evil. See it coming and go, oh, got to get away from that. Also, remember, gives us the knowledge of the Holy One, this Messiah that's coming, as far as Solomon was concerned. As we look back, this understanding of Christ and all that he accomplished. So, church, that's who Solomon is and what he's doing and what he's meaning to do. But listen to how he's doing it. He's writing Proverbs. He's writing sayings of the wise for this purpose. He gives several purposes in 3 to 4. The purpose is to know wisdom and instruction, to know that there is something out there that you need to live by. and that there is an instruction that you need to follow. He's not teaching them wisdom as I'm going to make you wise. He's giving them a knowledge of there is a wise way to live. There is a such thing as wisdom. There is a such thing as instruction. And then to understand the words of insight. I'm going to teach you how to understand these words so that you can gain wisdom, so that you can gain instruction and insight. And then he says, I'm going to gain to receive. So you're not only going to know it, but you're going to receive it. And you're going to take it upon yourself as if this is now mine. So the teacher gives knowledge, and the knowledge is received and taken. And he receives instruction in wise dealing. He receives instruction in how to live wisely. And how is that? In righteousness, justice, and equity. He's taught what is right. He's taught what is fair or just. And he's taught that it's equal. It's measured out equally to people. These God bearers, these image bearers, they are to be treated in a certain way. In righteousness, justice, and equity. And then it's to receive that knowledge, and then by doing it to give prudence. So give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. So in other words, it's to give this wise dealing, this living shrewdly, and then it's also to give knowledge and discretion to the youth. This is the way I'm going to instruct people and teach them so that they will grow. The simple person is maybe an older person that's never known God, and they're coming to faith in Christ, or they're coming to faith in Yahweh, and this is Solomon's way of teaching them so that they can understand. Or it's the way of the Christian to teach their children and to bring them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And so Proverbs are for that purpose. And then he says, let the wise hear and increase in knowledge. In other words, if you've been trained as a child, if you've been brought from being simple to being wise, you've still got a way to go. There's still stuff to learn. You still need to be actively learning. And you today need to be actively. You could say, well, I've been a Christian for 50 years. Well, good. There's still more wisdom to glean from the scriptures, especially the Proverbs. And he says, I'm going to give, let the wise hear and increase in learning. I'm going to increase my learning. And the one who understands to obtain guidance. So I understand there's evil out there, but maybe there's choices and I'm trying to figure out which way to go. The Proverbs will give this to you. To understand a Proverbs and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. I can now understand Proverbs. I can now understand the parables in the New Testament. Now I can start to understand what was said by these wise people that doesn't make much sense at first reading. I can now understand them. And how do I get there? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. This love that draws you into an awe of God, that I see all of who he is, his holiness, righteousness, justice, and I'm called into this exclusive relationship with this God, and I recognize I have a tendency to sin, I have a tendency to transgress, I have a tendency to leave him, and I start to fear that he's going to discipline me severely, and I'm not going to like it, to draw me back to this exclusive relationship, or he's going to punish me for eternity. And that fear of the Lord, because of the knowledge of who he is and the awe that inspires, drives me not to sin, not to transgress, not to be unfaithful to this God. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It drives me to know him. I'm in awe and reverence, and his glory just draws me in, and I want to see him. And so Solomon is telling you the fear of the Lord is basic before you can gain any knowledge of the Lord. And then he gives the opposite. So the fear of the Lord does that, and it ought to, and this is right and just, but fools, They despise wisdom. They're trying not to gain wisdom and instruction. They don't want to be taught what is true, and they don't want to know how to live wisely. They go the other way. Don't be the fool. Listen to what Solomon is telling us in these Proverbs. Gain the knowledge of the Lord. Let it develop a healthy fear of the Lord, that you would walk wisely in the Lord and escape the discipline or punishment. Punishment will be for unbelievers. Discipline will be for believers. Trust me, church. We don't want that. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Embrace the fear of the Lord. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.